Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Football Gods is the podcast where we give celebrity fans ultimate power over football.
Where else could you find out who Max Rushton would cast into the fiery pits of hell?
The person who I'm sending to hell is Ali McCoist.
And find out how David Seaman was influencing David Beckham in the early noughties.
I can't exactly give him stick for hairstyles, can I? No one had that massive ponytail.
You were the original, David.
Yeah, thanks chopping me. I'm well happy with that.
Search the Football Gods wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello to all of you Serie A Chronicles listeners. This is Patrick Kendrick, just checking in with you to discuss all of the action from midweek. There was plenty going on, from Inter and Napoli involved in the Champions League Round of 16 first legs to Milan and Roma in their second legs of their UEFA Europa League playoffs. Plus, Atalanta also found out where they stood in the draw for the same competition. And there was a midweek rearranged match between Torino and Lazio, which should have been played in January, which was indeed scheduled a month and a day after it was initially slated. So let's try and go in chronological order and not miss anything, but we'll try not to be too long-winded either. We'll start with the game on Tuesday night, Inter against Atletico Madrid. Inter, who have been so impressive domestically and indeed in Europe, albeit they did finish as runners-up in their Champions League group behind Real Sociedad, which is why they played their first leg at home, just like Lazio did a week prior, just as Napoli would do 24 hours later against Barcelona. Atletico Madrid were the opponents for the Nerazzurri, Diego Simeone coming back to a club where he had played many years before, and he was also a former teammate of Simone Inzaghi. And many were curious as to how Inter would fare against non-domestic opposition. We've seen that they are a cut above in Serie A this season. We got an inkling into the fact that they can compete with Europe's best last season, albeit lest we forget, much of their European knockout matches came against opposition that on paper you would expect them to beat. They played against both Porto and Benfica, and they beat city rivals Milan in that all-city showdown, that two-legged Champions League semi-final. When they came up against Manchester City, whilst they did compete on an almost even footing, ultimately it was glorious failure as runners-up. So it was interesting to see how Inter, always playing on the front foot, scoring lots of goals domestically, not conceding many at all either in Serie A, would come up against an obstinate, stubborn Atletico Madrid side. And the first half was fairly even. Inter had the better opportunities, but Atletico fairly solid. Axel Witsel was very impressive, playing as part of a defensive line. He who made his name really as a defensive midfielder. Jan Oblak impressed me with his handling as well. A lot of sort of flicked headers from the likes of Lautaro Martinez, which the goalkeeper not only saved but also held, whereas perhaps some Serie A goalkeepers might have spilled them. There might have been a possible rebound there. But eventually the weight of chances told, and it was bizarre. Marcus Thuram ended the first half hobbling off with a hamstring injury. Marko Arnautovic came on for him, and Arnautovic got into several goal-scoring positions. He spurned a lot of opportunities. You felt like it might not be his or Inter's night. He would eventually, however, take his opportunity after Oblak's save from Lautaro Martinez allowed Arnautovic to finish on the follow-up. Great for him to finally get his first goal at San Siro. Not his first goal at San Siro, because he'd scored at San Siro in that 4-0 win against Salernitana. He'd scored in back-to-back matches at San Siro. So nice to see him finally delivering on that potential promise. He is in the latter stages of his career, but he has unfinished business with Inter, having been part of the treble-winning side, albeit he said he was more of a fan than an actual player, and he has come in for a lot of stick, so it was nice to see him get a goal. Inter will, however, go away with some regrets that they didn't win the the game by more than that and didn't put the tie to bed already, because Atletico Madrid are a different side at home and they will take some beating when the sides meet at the Wanda Metropolitano. Mustn't get confused with Vanda Nada, as I am wont to do. So that was Inter, underlining why they are such strong favourites to win their 20th league title this season, to claim a second star in Serie A, but they will need another clean sheet, and they've been very adept at keeping shutouts this season when they go to Madrid. In fact, they only need a draw, so they could even get a score draw and they would prevail and move on to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Still in the hunt for the quarterfinals of the Champions League, much like Lazio, who beat Bayern by 1-0, are Napoli, Italy's reigning champions, who had that bizarre sequence of events with Francesco Calzona taking charge of the team almost on the eve of the game. He had 48 hours to prepare for the visit of Xavi's Barcelona and went back to the 4-3-3. We saw Victor Osimhen playing again, which is a big boost for Napoli fans and all of his teammates as well. Osimhen, who's been in and out of the side between injury, suspension, his participation in the Africa Cup of Nations. And it was Osimhen who got Napoli's all-important goal, an equaliser, after Robert Lewandowski had taken Barcelona's opener very well. It wasn't a vintage Napoli display. It was unlikely to ever be that. Calzona does have the benefit of having worked with Sarri, so that's a similar shape. Having worked with Spalletti, 4-3-3 as well, albeit it's going to take him a bit of time to impose his mark on this side. We saw Stanislav Lobotka taking a more pivotal role. Lobotka, who plays under Calzona for the Slovakia national team, a job that he continues to do, quite simply, Calzona. He is juggling his commitments with Slovakia and Napoli. And I think you have to take this result as a positive for Napoli. It wasn't a win, but they're still in the tie. It will be very challenging to go to the Camp Nou and get a result. But this is a Napoli side that are after also Rennes rather in Serie A. They're really facing an uphill battle to make it back into the top 4 or top 5, depending on what will be required to qualify for next season's Champions League. So all things considered, this was a positive result, and Calzona will have a couple of weeks now to try and build on this result so that he can make Napoli competitive for the second leg away at Barcelona. It was always going to be a challenge for at least 2, if not all, of these Italian sides involved in the round of 16 of the Champions League. Inter up against Atletico, Napoli against Barcelona, and Lazio against Bayern. So I think 2 1-0 wins for Lazio against Bayern, Inter against Atletico, plus a 1-1 draw for Napoli against Barcelona. I think we probably would have taken that had it been offered to us, those of us that follow Italian teams in Europe. So it wasn't a win for Milan, but overall they got the job done in the 2-legged tie. So that game kicked off in the early slot. Then 15 minutes before Roma took on Feyenoord, it was the turn of Torino against Lazio. Many of you might have even missed the fact that there was a rearranged match. This is one of 4 games which was postponed from round 21 in Serie A because of the EA Sports FC Super Cup. And it was Torino against Lazio because the latter had taken part in said Super Cup in Saudi Arabia as the reigning runners-up in Serie A. Lazio on the back of a disappointing home defeat to Bologna. Torino hadn't lost at all in 2024, one of only 3 Italian teams to be able to boast that record, the other 2 being league leaders Inter. Head to SerieAChronicles.com/Patreon now and subscribe to the Chronicles Tifosi Patreon membership with a free 7-day trial. Get early access to every full-length episode and voice note before the rest of the world. Plus, all episodes are 100% ad-free. And you get bonus Patreon-only exclusive episodes, video episodes, and behind-the-scenes extras. Also, be sure to join the new chat community in the Patreon app and chat with fellow subscribers.
Sports Social Podcast Network.